Hello everyone, as you can see on the title, this video is going to be a top 10 mid laners video. I did a one for AD carries as well as low elo players, and everybody really seemed to enjoy it, so let's get into doing this one. So there's a few things that I use to determine what makes a good champion in a certain role. One, how easy or difficult it is to execute that champion at a level that is expected, so how hard is it to perform on Akali every single game versus Annie? Now, if Annie's OP and Akali is OP, I would put Annie above because of how easy she is. You can use your brain to think about other things like jungle pathing, timers, watching the map and seeing where people are roaming, potential roaming. You can cover for people, etc., etc. So that's one. The other one is how OP they are, how much damage they deal in this case, or how much utility they bring, how good they are into a lot of the champions that are strong at the moment. As you'll see in this video, it's something I'm going to mention quite a few times, but let's just not waste any more time and get into the video. So I'm going to start off with number 10, which is Brand. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen loads of Brand in your games, but for those of you that haven't, he's being a menace in the jungle at the moment. And the reason he's so good in the jungle is, one, because he clears really quickly due to the Fated Ashes item, I believe. It's the mini burn item. But because itemization in general is just really, really good for him at the moment. And, he can build those same items in the mid lane. So Blackfire Torch gives him mana, cooldown reduction, AP, and AP per enemy that you have to burn on. Now, Brand is super good at spreading this, and he can get 20% bonus AP, which is nearly, the Rabadon's passive, for free, just for being his, who he is in a team fight. So that's number one. Number two, because firstly, just going back to the other point, because for the longest time he had mana problems in the mid lane. He would rush Liandry's and Rylai's, and then Liandry's became a mana item, a last chapter item, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. But at the moment, he's got a double burn itemization in Blackfire Torch and Liandry's. He also can get Rylai's, which is just disgusting on him. It slows for ages, and he combos really well with champions that have been really popular for ages, like Jinx. Constantly slowed, dealing damage, but not being able to finish people off. Jinx comes in, cleans up a team fight. So that kind of combo that, you see a lot, because both of these champions are really popular. However, a few things that really stop Brand from being, more is he's taken quite a few nerfs recently, and his damage has just gone down. His lane bullying has gone down a little bit. He can still clear waves fine, and he's still going to scale into an okay team fighter that will deal some damage. But that's what Brand is no matter what, right? If he's really, really fed, he might, just deal a little bit more damage, but he's always going to just provide a lot of damage and chaos in team fights because of the slows, and but not quite able to really carry a game on his own. He's very, very vulnerable. As I just mentioned, all those items make him tanky, but it's a bit hard for him to just put a Zhonya's into his build because there's so many core items that he needs. Okay, now coming up next is Hui. Hui, I'm going to say a lot of the same things as Brand. He's got great itemization with Blackfire Torch. He loves that item. He can also go Hextech Companion if he wants, but most people are going Blackfire Torch because it's just great on him for clearing waves and just long team fights. He does a lot of damage. He's got some utility, and he's also quite safe because of his range. He can snipe from just screens away. He can clear waves very easily, and he can burst down champions with relative ease as soon as he gets a few items. However, when I say safe, I mean he can team fight safely, but he does struggle against a lot of these champions that are going to be higher up the list in lane, and the game is quite snowbally in solo queue, mainly because of people's mental strength, but also with grubs and split pushing being more prevalent, AD carries being a bit weaker, so it tends to snowball a lot harder. And he just struggles to keep up with some of these champions and just lane into them, to be honest. Next, and we're going to get it straight into champions that he struggles against, Galio. Galio just loves playing against these two champions that are below him. He's got a 52% win rate at the moment, and the only reason I think he isn't, more popular in your games is because he's boring. But I promise you, if you put games into Galio and figure out how to team fight with him, when to go in, when to roam with your ultimate, if you put 5-10 games into him, and add him to your champion pool, you will see elo. You will just see elo because people don't respect him. People think he's boring, so they don't play him. Use that to your advantage. Be the frontline mage for your team. But yeah, he's very tanky. He's good into a lot of the mages. He can also really just make an AD carry's life very difficult with his taunt. Yeah, the only reason he's not higher up in this list is because you will struggle to solo carry a game with Galio. You do need something from somebody else. You need someone to play for, but if you're able to do that, if the game allows you to, you will just steamroll the game. And once again, these are just my opinions. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments, but yeah, Galio is just a very good playmaker, very good beefy frontline hybrid with mage hybrid, and yeah, can just do quite a few roles, and as long as you're able to play for someone, he's really strong. Okay, next. Another champion that I think people just don't play because she is just a bit boring, a bit one-dimensional. There's not much freedom of expression and skill expression in this champion is Vex. Now, not to sound like a broken record, but she is very good against some of the champions that we're going to see higher up in this list, and I really think that has bumped up her win rate. Champions with dashes really don't like laning against Vex. They don't like team fighting against Vex, and only a few champions on this list can really lane bully Vex. Now, she doesn't scale very well, but as I said earlier in the video, it's quite snowbally at the moment in the meta. So if you get going, if you play for your jungler, if you get a solo kill in a good counter matchup, on Vex, you're going to just be able to take over games and end up just one-shotting bot lane and roaming off cooldown. Now, once again, these champions, you need to put some games into it. It's not just champions that you can just pick up and play, apart from maybe Brand, especially Hui. Hui would be higher up in the list if it wasn't for how difficult he is. And the same goes for Vex. You need to learn how to play those counter matchups, learn how to get advantages. So I'd recommend playing 5 to 10 games before going into solo queue. Obviously, if you've clicked on this video, you want to know the mid laners that you need to play to be able to get some elo. And that is the case, but you need to put in some practice first. Okay, next up, Yasuo. Now, just before I go on to Yasuo, I'm now going to show, Vex loves playing into Yasuo. You can lane bully Yasuo. Of course, he gets quite mobile, but you're able to proc your passive a lot on Yasuo. And if you get played for or able to play with your jungler, you can make Yasuo's life a living nightmare. However, let's get into Yasuo. So, I believe Yasuo and Yone recently got buffed. Their early games got buffed, pretty sure. And, ever since then, his win rate has been up. He's got a 52% win rate, a high play rate, a high ban rate. This champion is just a menace, and if you can just not int for the first 10 minutes of the game and maybe, just capitalize on obvious mistakes, Yasuo is going to be able to just get into the mid game and out team fight, out maneuver most champions in the game, but every champion on this list for sure. The problem is he can be vulnerable early game because he has to play aggressive, he has to trade, he needs to whittle you down with his momentum. He sort of needs to skill check his lane opponent, and that allows you to be played around by the enemy jungler. So you need to make sure that you ward and that you take your opportunities when and as they come, and sort of that grey area where you're not sure, you just sort of kick that out of the way. Obviously, with lethal tempo gone, he lost a little bit of damage, but obviously, once again, buffs recently, fleet footwork, Doran's shield, and resolve tree just lets you sustain through most bad matchups, most range matchups, and once again, he can scale into the mid game really, really well. Next up on the list is his brother. Now, once again, they're not higher up on the list because they have to play somewhat aggressive early game, in solo queue at least, to be able to survive through lanes. You can't just get stuff thrown at you by mages and not go in to really to trade back. Of course, with things like Doran's shield and resolve secondary and fleet footwork, you can sustain through, but you do need to, remind them that you're there to fight. And for this, and for that reason, and for how explosive you need to play in the early game, it's not higher because it's not safe. Yone is a little bit more safer, which is why he's a bit higher. But you know, if you get through the early game on these two champions, and you can keep 10 CS a minute with the runes and masteries that I've mentioned, you will just be able to outmaneuver and out teamfight most champions. Especially, something else to mention is with the AP junglers being so popular at the moment, like the Brands and the Morganas and the Lilias, these two champions are fantastic for solo queue. It's our version of what they have in pro play with the AD carries. Really, really great. Okay, so next up is a controversial one, but I think Ahri. She's the jack of all trades. You can blind pick her, you know, which is something that you can't say for a lot of these. I've been speaking about counter matchups and how to play, but you know, Ahri, jack of all trades. She, even when she's got a bad matchup, she can farm and be safe and do a job. And then in team fights, you can take your opportunity, get your resets, and just go for it. The Malignant's Lichbane SoloQ build is still just really, really powerful. And she can, you know, she's got CC in that charm, so junglers can come to you for kills. For, you know, there's always a play to be made, as long as you don't waste the cooldown. Whereas other champions on this list, you know, struggle to get that CC off, especially when you've got level 6 and you can just close most gaps. Now, it's not all of them, right? Galio's fine at setting up ganks, right? But Ahri's just a little bit more consistent, I think, than a lot of the champions on this list, and I value consistency. Now, if you're an explosive player and you're just better than everyone in your elo and you win lane and, you know, you're smurfing, sure, Yone, Yasuo, Vex. But if you are trying to incrementally get better and you're like, okay, I need to find a mid laner that I can just play the game on every single game and always have options and ways to influence the game, I'd say Ahri is definitely up there. Okay, next is, if I can find her, there we go. Next is Aurora. Now, if this was last patch, I'd be putting her at number 1, but Aurora got nerfed. Now, I'm not going to pretend I understand Aurora, because I am the biggest hater for this champion whatsoever. I only know what I see, and I only know the stats. Now, if you're an Aurora player, or you want free elo, become an Aurora player, because nobody knows what this champion does. But with that being said, you have good damage with your QE, I believe. You can Q and E at the same time, proc your passive, proc electrocute, come out, heal up if they manage to tag you with some damage, but also the resets on your W. Just an insanely obnoxious champion and very slippery. But when you just take into account how powerful that ultimate is in solo queue, with champions on your team like Darius and Camille and Lilia, and Dravens and Jinxes, you know, trapping people in that ultimate, dealing a lot of damage, and being slippery so they can't, you know, just quickly pick you off and then deal with the bad situation that the enemy team are in. She's really obnoxious. I'd put her higher if I played her a lot, I'm sure, but I don't. If you want free elo, put 10 games into Aurora. Really just do, because not only is she broken, but no one understands what she does. No one knows the matchups. No one knows how to counter her yet. And, you know, 1 in 10 games, you're going to find someone that really understands this champion. Okay, next is Neferi. Neferi is just ridiculous. Let's just get that out of the way. She doesn't have many bad matchups. She has a few, but not many. She does a silly amount of damage if she doesn't get behind in the early game. She is tanky with the Eclipse build because she has a shield in her kit and a shield in Eclipse. It's just hard once she engages to really counter her and put some damage back onto her, so maybe she thinks twice about trading with you again. Her ultimate just allows you to snowball a game. If you see someone on a ward, it's just over for them. You press ult, you go in, you kill them. She's struggled for a while, win rate wise. I think she's been strong for a while and gone under the radar, but she is just wrecking it up in solo queue at the moment. And she has a extremely good matchup against my number 1. But before I get into number 1, I'm going to go through some honorable mentions. So honorable mentions are Irelia, Talia, Echo. Irelia, Talia, Echo. Yeah. So I think there was one more, but I can't see it. Sorry, and Diana. So I'm just going to quickly go through them, and once again, very quickly. Irelia, if you can play her, you know, once again, put 10 matches, 15 games into her. She is extremely slippery, high damage, and very safe. It doesn't have many bad matchups in the mid lane. Especially if you've got an AP jungler, fitting this in. The same reasons Yasuo and Yone are succeeding so much at the moment. Talia, she's great into champions with dashes like the Vex, and she can roam. If you can link up with your jungler, if you're pre-made with your jungler, you can make some really, really good plays with this champion. But she doesn't. She lacks that tool to get back into the game, to just click a button and bang, you've made a pick. It tends to be that your ultimate, you're trapping someone off, you're making a play for the team. You do have damage if you're ahead, but if you're behind, you don't have the tools to bring yourself back in. You need to make a play for your team and work around that. Echo, brilliant damage, very safe, good laning, can pretty safely farm. Yeah, overall pretty fantastic. Just once again a little bit less consistent, but also he doesn't quite reap the rewards that some of the other risky champions like Yasuo, Yone, and Neferi have. And now Diana, very tanky, deals good damage, good team fighting. The only reason she's not on this list is because she's low elo skewed. So if you're Emerald and below, this champion's great for you, but the higher up you get, I don't want to recommend her to you because she's quite one-dimensional, and players understand how to play against Diana, how to deal with Diana a little bit better. But she's a fantastic jungler. But if you're low on the the lower side of Diamond, Emerald, this champion's fantastic in the mid lane, very tanky, very hard to deal with, and very good counter into some assassins like Zed. However, number one is LeBlanc. Now, as I was mentioning, Neferi has a fantastic matchup into LeBlanc, which is, I think, why she might be a little bit higher on this list. Maybe Aurora could be switched, but LeBlanc is the queen of mid lane at the moment. It's not disputed. If you are a good LeBlanc, you can carry games. You deal so much damage one-shotting people with a combo as soon as you get Hextech Companion and SoloQ shoes. They really have to stack MR just to deal with you, and the problem then is that you've got multiple AD threats, because LeBlanc loves being the only AP threat on the team. Then the tanks built MR for a LeBlanc who's not going for them. She's going for the AD carry, and she's going to one-shot them. Yeah, so the best build, in my opinion, is Hextech Companion into a Shadow Flame, or if you need a defensive option, Zhonya's is fine as well. But this champion deals an extremely high amount of damage. She can farm safely. She can bully every single champion on this list in lane, especially once again if you're good. She struggles a little bit into Neferi once Neferi gets going, because of the dogs and the ability for Neferi to dash and follow her back to her W, which means that LeBlanc can't really trade, because if she does, she's going to get traded on harder. Yeah, apart from Neferi, she will dominate every single lane. She'll clear pockets of vision, and as you're rotating and you think you're taking the safe route, she'll hop over the wall and one-shot you. So, yeah, if I was to recommend an AP assassin being added to your champion pool, then I'd definitely recommend LeBlanc. But also, she acts like a poke mage, because you can go in, get your ult and your Q and maybe your E off, chunk someone to 1/3, 1/4 HP, maybe even one-shot them, to be honest, if you're fed. Yeah, wanted to keep this video short. I appreciate it's 20 minutes, so it's not been that short, but I will try to edit this down a little bit. Let me know what you think. I will be doing junglers next, followed by support. But if you want to see your role being done or being redone, let me know in the comments section below. Also, drop a like on this video. It lets me know that I'm doing the right things. And consider subscribing for more League of Legends content. I've been grinding the more community news videos at the moment, but I like to educate people in all aspects. So yeah, educational content is still coming. Working hard to get videos out for you guys. Thank you again for watching. It means a lot. Peace. Have a great day.